In a lot of ways, it feels like I haven't made much progress this year, but actually if I look back to, say, March, there was no upper deck up here, there was no track laid, anything like that. So I kind of have made quite a lot of progress. And while I've gone down a lot of rabbit holes, and I've kind of focused on those in videos, there have been other little bits that I've been up to as well that I just haven't quite found a place for. So I'm going to try and cover most of them here. Really how far I've got, where I am with the automation now, what plans are to kind of complete it, what issues I've still got with it. I had some running issues as well, which led to me comparing cheap versus more expensive decoders, and the running issues led to me testing the new DCCX motorboard as well, and comparing it to the setup I previously had. A few other little bits as well, so I thought I'd try and put them all together and summarise them in this video, because if I don't do it now, I'll forget it all. It did cross my mind to add what I might consider to be an unattended mode. As I've kind of gone through quite a lot now in other videos, the idea is there's a couple of automated shuttles running around while I'm running manual trains. But say if and this is against the whole kind of ethos of why I did this whole thing, but say I'm messing about, I am tidying up, I'm doing something, and I don't necessarily want or know that I need to come and stop a train. Can I have an unattended mode that will, in a case of emergencies, stop my trains if I don't stop them myself, and stop them before danger happens? And here we go. There's a one I need to stop there, and I think as this one comes around, it's going to go into caution shortly. So the software that is monitoring these trains, it now, since I added the whole resistive wheel set thing, I need to slow this down now because it's gone to caution, and we will very slowly, when it enters the next block, go to danger. The software that's doing the monitoring now has a connection to WeThrottle, and it effectively has a connection to these trains' throttles. So it crossed my mind that if I have an unattended mode, I can have manual trains running, but those trains will still be stopped by the layout if they're about to go into a block that's occupied, that's allocated, that has a set of points set against it. And then I thought, if these things do need to be, or if I want them to be, we're in caution again here. If I do want them to be unattended, they can't just stop when there is danger. The software then, of course, needs to be able to resume them when the danger clears, and that's where the big problem is. Something I have to remember when my trains are stopped, and they're stopped because the shuttles have occupancy of the track and whatever. And here's a good example of it. I've got Class 25 running around, and this section of track here has just been cleared and assigned back to my Class 25. But it's still red, it's still in danger, and it can't proceed. First of all because, well, the main reason, the only reason in fact, is because it's down here on this line, and because this turnout was assigned to the shuttle as it came through. In fact, as it came through and went through in this direction, this turnout is now turned against my train. And if I set this turnout to be in favour of my train, there should be I'm not quite hitting that button. There was a little beep there which tells me, and there's a green there, and there's a green on the knob box as well, which tells me, brilliant, it's fine for your train to continue. However, of course, that wasn't the only set of points in this block that was set in favour of the train that was leaving this bay platform here. This one was as well, so that it could get out. So if I just think, brilliant, that's green, I can set off now, off goes my train, what's actually going to happen is it's going to end up crashing into a set of buffers here, because that set of points was set as well for the train. So trying to do this left-handed isn't particularly easy, but I need to remember as well to click this set of points so that then closes the loop effectively, and the train can continue on that anti-clockwise loop. Now that's moving. In fact, it's exactly the same on the clockwise line as well. This is the block, the red one in the middle is where the 27, the ID 27, which is class 43, is sat waiting, and that had to stop again because of occupancy. So I can set this double slip to be now in its favour so that it won't have a short circuit. But again, if I let it go, this is now going to follow the path that the train that left this bay took, which means if I leave this set of points as it was set for the train that left the bay, this class 43 is going to follow it down the incline and into kind of, you know, down there, crash into it because it's going quicker. So again, I need to make sure that I set all the sets of points in that block to the setting that will enable my train to resume in the same on the same path that it was on when it had to stop. So in order to resume my train, once it's my manual train, if it's stopped it in an automated fashion after the train, as has happened here, the train that was occupying the block has cleared it, the app would need to not only change the points that are set against the train that's resuming, but it also has to set the other sets of points in the same configuration that they were in before the shuttle, in this example, went through the block. Of course, the problem is it can't possibly know that. It can't know what I was intending before it set the points for something it did know the intentions of because of a script. In the words of, I've been having a very interesting conversation on email with someone, I don't know whether to mention him by name, but who is very kind of involved in the iTrain project and sort of making comparisons, and like he said, it can't read my mind. So that kind of stopped me for a while, and I thought, okay, that I'm probably not going to be able to do that. But I've since had a thought that actually it can't read my mind, but it can make assumptions. It can assume that if it was a fully manual train, it was just going round in a loop. It can't make any assumption other than that. It can't try and double guess me. But if it can make the assumption that it was going round in a loop, and it can identify which loop it was on, which it should be able to, and I'm sort of thinking aloud, so I'm pointing the camera in weird directions, then maybe it can use a route. A route in JMRI is just a configuration of a collection of turnouts to achieve a certain route. And if I have a route for each kind of closed loop, and I'll only really need two because there'll only be the anti-clockwise and clockwise up here. If it can identify whether the train was on the anti-clockwise or clockwise upper deck loop, then maybe it can set a route before the train resumes, and that route would set the entire loop that the train is on to be closed. And that's kind of got me thinking that again, it's something that I would like to technically achieve rather than something I would perhaps find particularly useful or use to an extent. But then I sort of said that about the whole shuttle thing, and I found that I do use that every time I come up. So who knows? For a long time through the year, I felt like I've been battling with unreliable running, and I was sure there was some kind of technical problem somewhere that was causing a large number of trains to sometimes hesitate, slow down, sometimes stall, sometimes just become unresponsive. I'd send out the instruction over DCC to stop a train, and it might run at its normal speed for a good few feet before it finally decided it was going to stop. So I have been trying various things through the year to try to get around those issues and make all of the, either, I didn't know whether it was the locos or the layout, run more reliably. Something I've been very aware of really since I started back in this thing, back in whatever it was, 2015, 16, was I'd never bought what you might call a higher end decoder. Every decoder I'd bought, especially when I first started out, were the very cheap or certainly cheapest 8-pin decoders from Hatton's or from Lay's DCC, those kinds of ones that cost around sort of the £11 mark, and I'd stuffed them all in all of the trains, and really none of them have had any issues, so they're all still stuffed inside the trains. And whenever I'd bought new ones, I'd bought cheap ones again, whatever was available. And I did wonder whether, because all the trains were filled with them, whether the cheaper decoders were causing the problem. So all I could do really was buy a few more expensive ones and stick them in the trains that were having problems and see if it made a difference. And I have to say, it absolutely made no difference at all. The trains that were having problems were still having problems. Maybe they exhibited the problems in a slightly different way, but they still had exactly the same problems that they were having before. So the conclusion, I don't use sound. I think the conclusion I've come to, therefore, with decoders is all I'm interested in is making the train move, and if it has lights, putting lights on at the front. And from the kind of, certainly not in-depth experimenting I've done, but all the testing I've done, if that's all I want from a decoder, then there's nothing wrong with buying a bargain basement decoder. I can program it easily. I can set voltage increases if I want to, set the motor in reverse, turn back EMF off. All the things that I would want to do with a more expensive decoder, and I've seen absolutely no discernible difference. And kind of staying on the subject of bargain basement DCC control, this was my DCC motorboard, and I've been using this for a number of years, and I've kind of gone through a few different relatively inexpensive options. I'd started with a Sprog, and I still can't speak highly enough of Sprog. The only issue I had, it wasn't with the Sprog itself, it was that it was on a Raspberry Pi, and the Raspberry Pi seemed to be really struggling with handling JMRI and the amount of automation I was trying to do. And I made a video about that, and actually replacing it with this, I think, which I'll try and put a link to. So I did replace it with this, and this is, again, very inexpensively put together. It's an £18 Arduino Mega with just a very cheap sensor shield thing on top. This is the motorboard, and there are I think there are some videos around on YouTube on using, I think, a Deke robot motorboard, and I had started out even before the Raspberry Pi with this layout using that. But the problem with those really cheap motorboards is they simply haven't got the amperage to the capacity to cope with a layout. That Deke robot board was cutting out even when running one train, let alone two. So that was never going to be an option for a layout this size. So on the DCCX website, I read about these boards. These are capable of about 14 amps. Obviously, you don't want that much power running through the layout, so it's tamed a little bit. And these only cost, maybe, if you're patient and willing to wait for one from China, cost about £11. If not, if you want one in the next few days, maybe a UK reseller sells them for maybe 13, 15, something like that. They're really relatively inexpensive. And it's got one input for the power from the power block, so kind of 15 volt input. And then two power outputs, one to your programming track, one to your main track, or that's how I used it. And it's in order to tame that potential high amperage output in case of issues, there are fuses sat between the motor output and the rails, which will I think are around 5 volt value, so they'll snap if the 5 amp value. So they'll snap if the amperage exceeds that. And there are also Hall sensors, which are used for software detection of amperage, so that, again, the software can cut out the track if it detects an increase. And I think they contribute to the process, and I'm really not sure about this, of short circuit detection as well, which was capable of. But, you know, I put it together, and I was really surprised when I put it together, and it just worked. And then so it sat under the layout for a good 18 months to a year, but it was always in the back of my mind, this is a really cheap setup. Is there a problem with this? Is there a problem with the board? Is it sending inconsistent messages out and that kind of thing? So it was always in another potential cause of the issues I was having. Now, after I had put all of that MOSFET board thing together, DCCX did announce that they had built their own motorboard, which required a lot less wiring, obviously has the Hall sensor type modules built into it, and is very much certified and built by them. And for a relatively inexpensive amount. I think they do have a UK reseller, is it Chesterfield Model Railway, something like that. So, and they're linked from the DCCX website. So I bought them from them. I think it maybe cost £60 to £65 delivered, something like that. So a little bit more money, but there's the peace of mind that comes with that it's built specifically for this task by people who really do appear to know what they're doing. Far less wiring, a lot more of the kind of the stuff I had to do on board, and there's that element of trust that comes with it. Very easy to cable up. You just sit it on top of an Arduino and plug the near side thing is the power brick that's going in, and then those two green blocks are just the outputs to the programming track and the main track. And I think it's capable of 5 amps on each of those outputs, which is certainly a lot more than I need. So I plugged it all in and got it all working, and it made absolutely no discernible difference. The whole layout ran exactly the same way as it had with the MOSFET board, which is kind of encouraging, and it's good to have the comparison the same as it was with the DCC decoders, that actually that MOSFET board compared to the DCCX board at least was working perfectly well and functioned in exactly the same way as the DCCX board has, which replaced it. So then I started to think in a more specific way, and something that was noticeable on this line here, the trains were always stalling on this stretch of track here. No matter how much I cleaned it, no matter how much I tested its continuity and cleaned the wheels of the locos and everything I could, they were all still failing on this stretch of track. And it was the old set track stuff that I'd had lying around when I put it together. So just because it was in an easy place to pull up, I just simply pulled up the 2 bits of set track that were in there. They were kind of similar to the ones that are up here, and replaced it because I'd loads of track left, loads of the Pico Flexi track left. So I just cut a length of track the same length, put it down in its place, and interestingly, the issues with stalling along this stretch of track completely disappeared. So whether it was an issue with a fish plate connection or with the rail itself, I'm not sure. But actually, in that instance, just replacing the rail has, thank you Class 25, led to perfectly smooth running on that area of track. And very close by to that piece of track was the outside curve here that the Class 37 is about to run over. And what I was finding with locos here, and again it was multiple locos and I did all the cleaning, as soon as they got onto the corner, they were stopping and stalling and really operating dreadfully. And as soon as they passed the little break in the track that 37 has just passed over, it's kind of in the middle of the camera screen now, they ran perfectly again. So again, I cleaned, and I cleaned all the wheels, cleaned all the tracks, scrubbed it, got the IPA on it, and as much cleaning as I could do, and I just couldn't make the trains run. And because it's actually, if I come out a little bit, in such close proximity to the other piece of track I was having problems with, I wondered if I started going down like the whole electronic interference thing, but I don't think it was that. Because what I realised in the end was this is an isolated block coming back up here. There's I think the block starts way down in that corner there actually, and so all of this track here round to that break there is an isolated block. Now the block detector that's running it is a single rail block detector, so there are only insulated rail joiners on the far side, on the far rail. The near side one has conductive rail joiners. So I thought if there is an issue with continuity of signal, of voltage on this block, it's not likely to be on the near rail, because in a different way to the far rail, there's continuity at both ends, if you like. It's not isolated. So what I also realised was, as it's just coming around again, which is awkward, was although the block started back there, the trains never stalled along this bit of track here. They only started playing up when they hit this one. So then I sort of wondered, well, is there a problem? And there was only one dropper on the far rail, and it was over that side, and it went off and obviously connected the output from the block detector. And what I started to realise was, well, the dropper is connected to that rail, and it runs well on that rail, and it's only when it crosses this connection here that the problems start, when the trains hit here. So what I thought as an experiment was I climbed over the other side and got my soldering iron, which in fact is still there, and I soldered another dropper. It might be visible because it's very messily done. I soldered another dropper the far side of the join there, and that has completely fixed it. Everything runs beautifully smoothly there. And then what I did after I'd done all that work, and I can't believe I didn't do it before, was I had a close look, and I don't know if the camera will pick this up, at the connection here, and I think I need to get lower down. What I can see is actually, and the Class 37 is really going to get in the way now, is the fish plate is much further over to the left side as the camera's looking at it than it is to the right. And I think actually, after everything I did to try and sort this out, the only real issue is a slightly misplaced fish plate, and if I'd actually got a pair of pliers and dragged it that way a bit, I'd have probably solved the problem. So it's a quite expensive way, I think, to establish that there was nothing wrong. But I do have another use for that MOSFET board that's come out. I know exactly where that's going to go, and it is going to get used. And at least I'm going to pass it on, and at least I can pass it on with confidence, that actually it's not just cheap rubbish. It's been sat on this layout for a good 18 months to 2 years, and it's operated in exactly the same way as a slightly more conventional board would have. And also I've got a little bit more confidence in the decoders as well. So although it's sort of a little bit of an expensive experiment, at least it's given me a bit of peace of mind. Now this is an area that has slowly developed through the course of maybe the back half of this year, and I've never really mentioned it because I'm not particularly happy with what I've done. It is, if I come in close, it really is quite a mess. What I've tried to do here is just get some basic paint work down as a basis for what will become hopefully scenery. Get some ballast down, which is slightly messily done, but I'm kind of okay with it. And then I thought the next thing I really had to do was start to learn to paint the rails. So I did invest in an airbrush, and I had a little practice, and then I came along here and made a right old mess of it. Now everything is wrong with this. In the end, the I wanted a kind of rusty brown look, but actually I think it's come out a little bit too light, and it's a little bit too red. This was a Tamiya colour called Hull Red, and I'm only 15 miles from Hull, so I thought the omens were telling me it was perfect, but it turns out no, it's not right at all. But I think it's good. One of the reasons why I've never done anything with scenery on this whole layout is because I'm scared of it, and I'm scared of getting it wrong. So I think it's been actually quite a positive thing for me at this early stage for me to get it wrong, because now I've got to fix it, and hopefully by fixing it I will get a bit of confidence that these things can be fixed, and that I can fix them. I think ultimately all I really need to do with this, because these are meant to reflect dirty, messy railway lines. Ultimately, I can just keep filling it with black, keep painting it black until everything that's gone wrong is resolved and hidden, and then just pretend it happened to be a really oily, messy area of track. And that area of track there is meant to join up to this street scene, all of the parts for which my friend Simon has sent me. These are the ones he actually built as a prototype. The ones I built, I put away because I brought these back from his place last time I was there. But the idea, because these are connected or stuck to a plank of wood at the back, which kind of gets in the way, these are good for a representation, but I'm going to have to build my own from all the parts he sent me, and I've got more than enough to do that. That's certainly something, and I think it's a good start point that this will be an entirely kind of isolated scene. Station entrance there obviously isn't there yet, but some kind of station entrance there. Street scene here, which gives me lots to play with, and then just a kind of connection and continuation to what would be a bit more of a derelict area here with a tunnel mouth there. Retaining walls at the back, and kind of as the street scene, the pavement of the street scene finishes here, just a little bit of fencing maybe, and Simon amazingly, he takes stills from the videos I make and then sort of draws over them and sends me impressions of what he thinks it could look like. And if I can find them, I'll put them over this bit of video, because the ideas he has for here. I mean, I did kind of have a vision of it when I did it, which is why this stuff's cut the way it is. But to see what he can artistically do and make it look like, really does give me a lot of motivation to keep sticking at something I really don't feel I have currently the skills, and certainly not the confidence, obviously, to do. Something I find with automation, when I really try and kind of get automated trains running consistently and for a period of time, it certainly exposes any issues that the layout has, and it finds them quickly. And what I found this year in particular is by far the weakest link I had were these things, the shift registers. I think similarly to those old RS485 chips, susceptible to any kind of I don't know, electronic interference or anything, and very easy to burn and break. And I had those two I was just holding. I had those down here controlling the relays for the electro frog points in this corner, and they just broke over time. They worked when I put them in. Eventually these relays were going crazy. They weren't moving when I wanted them to. They were clicking and messing about all the time. So for the time being, I've replaced them with an ESP32, which is a lot more stable. But I'm quite interested. There's a guy, so I don't know your name actually, but the channel is A Leopard's Tail, and we've been chatting on these videos for quite a while. And in the back half of this year, he's been building a new layout of his own, and he obviously has a lot more electronic experience than I do, and knowledge in those areas, and he's done some videos around kind of multiple input output boards that I'm going to basically steal, I think, and replace all of the shift in and shift out registers that I currently have on the layout, because I know eventually they're going to die. The knob box here I have to say has been an absolute revelation. I use it and I use nothing else now. I love the tactile feel of it, and obviously it interacts with the software as well to give me cab signals. But it is still a little bit, I think, just because every pin on the ESP underneath, and it's messy. I built it in a hurry because I wanted to use it and I wanted to be able to get the cab signals working. I think what I really need to do, and again get Simon's help on this, because he's the one who actually built the whole the box and the fascia, is build another one, because really this needs a complete rewiring. See here, there's it's detected a button press that isn't really there, and I don't think I can actually, well, I can move it, but it's detected that button's pressed in constantly, and I think unsurprisingly for anyone who's aware of the rest of this layout, it is just a complete rat's nest of mess. underneath there's the connections for the screen, and they all go into the ESP. I have bought a couple of, I can't remember what they're called now, but and again, just by moving it, the screen's gone. So it's a very sensitive little box, bless it. I can't get the lid back in one-handed, but never mind. So I need to certainly rewire it, rebuild it, and because I now know how useful it'll be, build it less as a prototype and something that I really need to actually use. I treated myself to a new loco. This is a Heljan, who knows. Class 25. It cost about £118 delivered, I think, from Rails of Sheffield. I just saw it with a discount and thought I'd give it a go. I'd given it a quick Google. I think there were maybe some complaints about somehow the way it looked and inaccuracies, but I frankly don't care much about that, because I don't know what a full-size Class 25 should look like. I've just turned the lights down a little bit in the loft to try and illustrate this better, but the way the lights function doesn't seem to be quite as easy and intuitive as I've found with other trains. I don't know if it's down the decoder. I don't think it's down the decoder. It must be down to the wiring in the train. But this is the train set to forward and with the F0 light function on. And it's got these lovely big lights on the top, and they behave as I would expect. If I switch the direction of the train, the lens isn't picking that up, but that the equivalent light on the back of the train is lit up, and again if I do forward. But what's also noticeable is when I do that, there are no red lights appear. If I put the train into reverse, there are no red lights that appear on the what is now the back of the train, because it's set to direction go towards the trusses. I can switch if I switch this back to forward, there's an I think is it F1 will switch red lights on, but it seems to be a manual process, so those lights are now on the front of the train and not on the back. So at the minute, even though it's set to go forward, it has both the red light, I don't know what it is, the rear light on, and the front light. And at the back, I just bring this round, hopefully just through that gap. Let me move the oil. There are no lights on, but if I come and I'm just trying to control them from here, so I see I've got light in F1. If I put F2 on, then we do get both, but we get both reverse lights or rear lights on the front and the back. So whereas with most, in fact every other train I have that has lights, the illumination of both the forward and reverse lights are set entirely by setting the direction of the train. It seems like with this one, although the large lights on the top of the train are set by direction, the red rear lights have to be set manually and are not affected at all by the direction of the train. The motor grinds a little bit as it's moving around, but I can put up with that because there's so much noise once a couple of other trains are running as well. It needed a little bit of an increase in its start voltage, low speed voltage, just because these coaches I'd lying around, they don't run particularly smoothly, and I can't get them to run particularly smoothly. So it was stalling only when it was pulling trains at startup, so I had to just increase its start voltage a little bit, and that's sorted it out, and now it's just a handy little extra train running around the layout. I do think then as this Class 25 comes down with the wrong lights on, that this is the area where the transition is going to be from the end, finishing off the technical side of things, to starting the scenery. The reason why another reason why I did the ballasting down there was again as a practice, because as part of this scene, kind of looking over from the road to the rails, the rails here are going to have to be scenic as well. So the bit down there was a bit of a practice really, although it will contribute to this scene. Once I'm happy with the ballasting and the painting, the idea is to move up and do this track up here. In order to do that, I'm going to have to get the last few sensors in for the stopping sensors for the platforms, but that's it. And I think all the technical stuff that would perhaps necessitate disruption to the track, that I want to do before any ballast and painting is done will be finished with a few sensors, especially now the track is working and reliable, and I'm confident in the technology. So this does feel like the transition point from the emphasis being on the technical to the emphasis being on the scenery.